So I started creating a program, which is now what Strive 11 is, which it's a boot camp style model. So it's like a group fitness class, but we don't have class time. So you can come in whenever it works around your schedule. Once you come in the door, then you can hop into the workout. You get the same energy as you would in a group setting, but you're not confined to a traditional schedule. And then, launching the franchise aspect of it as well was really to aid in one of my biggest core values, which is to have a positive impact on as many lives as I can while I can. And I could do that faster and at bigger scale with franchising versus just keeping it corporate stores and growing it, slowly, because I want to transform members' lives, but also franchisees' lives and the trainers that work for us lives.
Hello, I'm John Brink, and we are podcasting on the Brink from downtown Prince George, British Columbia, Canada. And for all those people watching us from around the world, and they say, okay, yeah, we know where Canada is, right? Yeah, and British Columbia on the west coast, right? And then Prince George, well, we have a big city in Canada or in the world, in British Columbia, that everybody knows about, is Vancouver. We are 500 miles north of Vancouver, or for our European friends, 800 kilometers, which puts us in the center of British Columbia. Northwest, east to west, north to south. And for all those people that are watching us from around the world and that are interested in British Columbia and in Canada, the answer is no. Trump will not get British Columbia. Point zero. No, no, no. Although we are considering maybe taking Washington, Oregon, and California. Well, that sounds like makes sense. Anyway, that then being said, today I got a very interesting guest, Devan Gonzalez. And Devan is a mindset-driven entrepreneur, a CEO of Strive to Be Fitness, host of Mindset Cafe podcast, and the best-selling author of Money, Muscle, Mindset, the Underground Playbook for Aspiring Gym Owners. And then one of the questions that we will have, why do you believe mindset is essential for achieving success in both fitness and business? Devan, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor. It's so cool to be a part of your show.
So the question we should start with is why is mindset so critically important in life on the different things that you pursue, including obviously the ones that we talked about?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great question. And I think it's so important because it gets overlooked a lot of times, in my opinion, right? People look for motivation. They look for these other external factors to get them going. And my belief is that everything begins and ends with your mind, right? When you believe in something, you believe you can achieve something, then it's a possibility, right? It can become your reality. But the moment that you stop believing in something is the moment it becomes impossible, right? So you have to realize that if someone else has done it, that is living proof. That is a testament that it is possible for you too, right? I like to tell people, when they see someone else achieving it, achieving a goal that they, want to achieve, and it's a dream for them, and they're like, but I can never do that. And I tell them, like, you're not special. And then they're like, I'm not special. And it's like, yeah, you're not special enough for it to be a possibility for everyone else to be able to achieve it except for you, right? It is a possibility for you as well. But you need to believe in yourself, and you need to believe in your abilities and your ability to learn and get the tools and resources that you may not have now, but that you will gain in the pursuit of achieving that goal.
So I agree with you 100% that it becomes a question of your mindset. Who am I? Believing in yourself, I do a lot of presentations as you do, especially to younger people. And what I always say to them, too often they are too preoccupied. This is not right, that's not right, and this is not right. I don't look good enough. I don't, on and on and on and on. And I say, no, there is only one of you on this earth, and you are special. Not
Hmm.
better than, but special. You, as you are. That's who you are. And that everything is possible. And I believe in a can do attitude. And so the other foundation that I have is attitude, passion, work ethic. What will follow is success.
Yes, I agree.
So, Devon, so where did you start, and take us through? You're quite a bit younger than me. I just turned 84 2 weeks ago. 84 years young, I call it. And so and I believe in a lot of things that we are talking about, and has been part of my life in different ways. It took me a long time to get to the point that I had confidence in saying, "Who am I?" to get to that point. Tell us about you, though, as to where did you start, how did you get through your early stages education, location where you lived, and then ended up to become a driven entrepreneur and started to podcast and started to become an author.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we're not that far off in age. Happy belated birthday. I
Oh,
just
thank you.
turned 33 back in December.
You
Um, so not too far off in age, right?
no.
And so my story, really began, back when I was a child. I'm the oldest of three boys, and it it came from my parents essentially making me do every single sport under the sun. And their whole rule for me was essentially I had to try it one time, and it didn't mean to go play the game one time. Like I had to do a season of it, and if I didn't like it after that, then I could quit. I was like, okay, cool. And they put me in every single sport you can think of. I did fencing, I did hockey, I did tennis, I did baseball, football, everything, rugby. And so some sports I was good at, but I just didn't like, and they would be like, okay, you tried it, let it's okay. And I ended up going into martial arts. Not, it was the second time around because my younger brother was going into it, and my parents convinced me that I needed to be the bigger brother role model and, go do it again with him. But that second time around, all of a sudden things started to click for me, and I really started to enjoy it and really started to enjoy the sparring, the fighting, and so forth. And then I got my black belt at the age of 13, and I was presented an opportunity by basically the owner of the martial arts studio that if I wanted to become one of the head instructors, that that was an opportunity for me. So I became an assistant instructor and worked my way up. But I was a martial arts instructor from the age of 13 to 18, and then went to college, and the martial arts schedule and my college schedule weren't really lining up, and they were in two different cities. So I had to basically part ways with the martial arts, and that's what made me think like, oh man, like what do I want to do? I still want a job. Like, I mean, yes, I had parents, and the financial issue wasn't a huge. We didn't have money problems growing up. Like we weren't rich, we weren't poor either. But I also just personally grew this like love for my self drive and my work. Like I liked having my own money, right, as a kid. And so I got a job at a gym, and there was a few jobs in between that, didn't last very long, but ended up realizing that I liked fitness and so forth. So I got a job at a gym, started off as a sales counselor, didn't really like the selling part, so switched over to personal training. And then that was my real opening door to finding my purpose. Didn't know it at the time, but I was telling everyone I have a great college job. It aligns around my college schedule and so forth. But I ended up switching my college major from business management to kinesiology, which is the study of human movement, and really started diving into the subject of basically fitness. And then at the end of college, it was like, okay, well, my parents are telling me to get a career. I'm loving what I'm doing. So to kind of fulfill what my parents were telling me, I started going the firefighter route, but got towards like having to quit personal training to do an EMT, and I was like, I don't want to do that. Like, why? You know? So ended up diving into personal training full force. Worked for corporate gyms, worked for private gyms, and then eventually parted ways and opened up my own personal training company, and was making six figures, and not as an online coach or anything, like in person, 16 hours a day, and loving it.
So
Now,
you're
huh?
still in Southern California, then, Devin, or in LA, or?
Yeah, so I grew up in Santa Clarita, in LA County, but kind of
Okay.
on the outskirts. And then, when I went to college, I went to Cal State Northridge, so about 30 minutes away. And so that commute back and forth wasn't the most fun. And I had a Dodge Challenger at the time, so it was chugging gas. And I was like, okay, this is not a realistic commute, and trying to work and everything like that. So got a new job in near college, moved out and everything. And yeah, really just dove into personal training, right? Started building an actual career for myself as a solopreneur, and built a six-figure personal training business, helped launch a national prep school for middle school kids that played basketball and stuff. And then that really led to me really finding what I wanted to do, and that was to create my own gym, my own, fitness model. And that was what was the initial birth of Strive 11 Fitness, which is a boot camp style fitness concept with no class times. And then we just launched the franchise model of it last year in 2024, and now we're franchising, nationwide. We have a location opening up in Tampa, Florida. We'll have two actually coming in Texas soon, and then one in Washington, Vancouver, Washington, which I didn't even know was a city in Washington. I thought that was in Canada. And then all of
No,
a sudden, yeah,
it's
she was
right
like,
on the border of Washington and Oregon. Yeah,
yeah, I didn't know that. And I was like, at
yeah,
first, she was like, I'm in Vancouver. I was like, oh, wait, I don't know if we can franchise in Canada. And she's like,
yeah.
no, in Washington. And I was like,
Oh my
wait,
goodness.
what? So then I
Yeah.
had to look that up and stuff. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of been my journey, and then launching the gym, launching the franchise and stuff. I've always wanted to write a book because I thought it was so cool seeing other people have their names on books, but I didn't know what I wanted to write. And that's what led to Money Muscle Mindset was, what if I had a book that would have helped me open my gym and gave me all of the answers to, look for research and stuff. So Money Muscle Mindset, the first chapter, the last chapter, talk about mindset, because again, my belief is really everything begins and ends with your mindset. So that metaphor of the book is the same way. And then the middle chapters are everything from like, how do you find a location? How do you, design a niche? How do you find your client avatar? And everything in between. And that book comes with like QR codes with no lead magnet, like free give me's, like videos, templates, all that kind of stuff to help people along their journey.
Have you got a copy of the book there around you so you can show it to us?
Yeah, I just, it was a little tabbed
Oh
up. I
yeah,
was making notes and stuff,
yeah, yeah. I
but
like it. Yeah, yeah. So it's available on all the normal, traditional Amazon, etc., etc., etc.
yeah, so it's available on Amazon right now, in Kindle. I am making an audio version. Some people have asked me for that, and I was like, oh man, I got to read out loud. But yeah, I'm gonna make an audio version for people as well.
Yeah, you're gonna do it yourself.
I'm gonna do it myself. The reason why is, I mean, I'm not the best reader in terms of sounding professional, but I have listened to a plethora of audiobooks, and one thing that I've liked when an author reads their own book is almost like a podcast format of their book. So they read the chapter and then they give so many insights and stuff throughout that you wouldn't find in the book.
Right. So I wrote five, and so this is the first one that I did, and against all odds, I did the audio. I read it myself as well, although I'm ADHD and have reading difficulties. And so writing books is not easy. And
Hmm.
so it took me. People said to me, "Oh, you had such an interesting life. Why didn't you write a book?" And and then for about 20 years, tried. I started it and stopped, and started and stopped, and blah blah blah, on and on and on. And then about 6 years ago or so, 5 6 years ago, when I was already in my mid 70s, I knew if I didn't do it now, it would never happen. So I started writing the book. It took me 80 years to live it, 20 years to think about it, 2 years to write it. And the title is Against All Odds.
I like
It's
that.
not about how successful John is, but the other way around. It's all about ups and downs and all the challenges along the way. And then, so that was the first one that I did. And
I like
I
that. I'm
did
going to
the
talk about that.
audio as well, and which was a challenge, So yeah, but I think it's very, very important that if you write a book, do it yourself, preferably so that the people can connect to the actual writer, and then hear his voice and do the reading.
No, I think that's so important, and you give extra insights and having your own flair to it and stuff. It just resonates so much more deeply, in my opinion. So I think that's so awesome.
So I did another book. I just want to show you. This is the fourth one that I did, and that is interesting. Is Living Young, Dying Old, and so it's a picture of me actually. I'm also the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America, and so I wrote this one. This came out about 4 or 5 months ago, and it's again available on all of them. And the whole idea is that it's not age that counts, but quality of life, and
Hmm.
that's the most important part of it. And then, then do all the other things that are important to me. Is that get lots of sunshine or vitamin D, sleep extremely important, 8 to 9 hours. I suggest exercise. You don't have to become an Olympian or a bodybuilder necessarily, but do whatever it takes to stay physically active. Diet, extremely important. And then the other one, critically important, mindset.
Yeah, I mean, you got some guns in that picture.
Yes. So I love it, and still now, even for me it took certain things happen in life that give you a shocker. That my wife is a vegetarian, and then I didn't listen quite as well to her as I should have. I did okay, but not quite as good as I should do. And when I was 68 years old, I had a case of what they call diverticulitis. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but for
Yep.
our guests watching, I'm not a doc, or that if you have pain on your right side, then it could be appendicitis. And then on the left side, people would say maybe diverticulitis, which is your colon. In my case, it was not just that I had a problem, but a rupture of the colon that puts toxins in your body, and you have a limited amount of time until it will attack the healthy organs, and then things will go the wrong direction. So I got operated. They took 20 centimeters out of my colon. And then the following day, the doc said, "You came that close." And so that gave me the signal that, I'm going to have to become more serious about going to the gym, and, and then about diet, and listen to my wife more in terms of diet. And so for the gym, I was up to then the same as a lot of people are. At the end of the year, we say you're going to do this. At the end of the year, you're going to do this, that, and buy a membership to a gym. And then 2 weeks later, we can find 100 reasons why we're too busy to go to the gym. and so I knew what I should do is not only go to the gym, but got a trainer that kind of creates for me a commitment to go, because my life is meetings mainly. And so, and the gym is one of the more important ones that I do as priority over everything. So I started in 2009, about 15, 16 years ago. And then after being in the gym for about 6 years, with my trainer, and somebody came up and said, "Hey, John, you ever think about competing?" I said, "Me? Really?" And so by then I'm already 74, and I said, "Well, why not?" And so that's what I did. Competed here in northern British Columbia, bodybuilding and physique. Came in second bodybuilding, third in physique, qualified me for the provincials, did the same, about third in physique, second in bodybuilding, and then that qualified me for the nationals and the Arnolds.
So
Then
awesome.
COVID came. And obviously that set us back a bit, and the structure around competing and so was no longer possible. The gym became difficult to do on a steady basis. And then I started again after, and and hence wrote a book about it, and that's me now. And again, I'm training for the provincials, the nationals, and then go back to the Arnolds. And so, but here I'm in my 80s, 84. And so I think the picture was taken when I was 83. So, and what it does for me is also still working with a trainer. I do it very structured, and again, getting ready for competition. I'm very conscientious about diet. I'm very conscientious about sleep, and obviously sunshine, and then trying to stay positive. It took me a long time to get there, but become at peace with who I am took me a long time initially. And then I'm in Canada, and I was born in 1940 at the beginning of the war year. And my mom and dad were married in 1938. They were in love at a beautiful house that they rented, or a little apartment they rented. And my dad had a career in lumber, and very quickly they had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and then my mom was pregnant with me, and then what happened? Adolf Hitler, the dictator of Germany, decided to invade Poland, and next invade Western Europe, and my dad was drafted to go into the Dutch army in April of 1940, and for 5 years they would not know if he was dead or alive, because the last time that he was seen was before the bombing of Rotterdam, and thousands of people died. So she was on her own, pregnant with me. I was born November the 1st, 1940. And so the first thing that I remember is 1943, 44, hundreds of bombers overhead from the Allied forces bombing German infrastructure and war infrastructure. And we lived northeastern Holland, 10 minutes from the German border. And then the next was that they had cut off all the food in 1944, the Germans did. And we as kids, hunger was, I still can feel, even now, 80 years, the feeling of hunger. And we as kids would go every morning with gunny sacks into the railroad yards and take anything edible and burnable. And the reason that we did as kids, because they wouldn't shoot us, they boot us one, but we'd be back the following day. At the same time, the winter 1944, 1945 was the coldest on record, and I still remember that. Small little heater in one little corner of the house, where we were trying to stay warm, and so I can still remember that part. Very hot and very cold, still stays with me. And then we were liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945. It made such an impression on me. We saw far too much that we should not have seen. PTSD very much part of me still today. The inner child is, but the liberation of the Canadians made such an impression that I knew once I grew up I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada. And so that was 60 years ago. And then the
Wow.
other part that what I would do is build a lumber mill. And so go to Canada, build a lumber mill, start with nothing. And so that's what I did. And and then the other part that you may find interesting is that I didn't feel very good about myself. Academically in Holland, I was not a success story. I failed grade 3. I failed grade 7 3 times. And they said, what are we going to do with this guy? And so a lot of people said, send him to the mentally challenged school. They said, no, we're not going to do that. So we teach them a trade. And so they, at 12 and a half years old, they send me to a furniture factory. And that's where I worked as a laborer. And then in the evenings, I would go to becoming a furniture maker. And so kids are hard on each other. That, with all the friends that I had in grade 7 that were going to school, I became a laborer, and then I was no longer part of that because I was a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then I was kind of looked down at. But I felt I had to start over again, and I also felt that I was just as smart as the other ones, not better than. I was always already entrepreneurial, but lived in my own little world. And so it was the dream of going to Canada and to become successful. And so that's what I did. And then after I was here and I arrived here in 1965, in northern British Columbia, because that's where all the timber is, and to build a lumber mill. And I came off the bus, started with virtually nothing. I had 1 suitcase, 3 books, 2 sets of clothes, and I counted my money at least 3 times. I had $25.47. But what I had, lots of attitude. I'm always optimistic. Passion, whatever I do, I give it 125%. Work ethic, that I work harder even now than anybody. And at 84, I usually get up at 5:30 in the morning. I always make my bed. I always think I'm late. And so I give it all that I have, at the work. I have a number of different companies, including a sawmill, by the way. But it's not about that. But after I was here already for 32 years, Devan, and that's why I was going to give you a view of my background. I went into a bookstore here, and I picked up a book, and I still don't know why I did that. The bookstore was driven to distraction. And I had no idea as why I did that. And as I went through the book, it was about ADHD. I'd never even heard of it. I had no idea. And so the book was written by Dr. Hollowell, who's written 18 books, 5 of them on distraction, is recognized globally as an expert in ADHD, is ADHD and has dyslexia. So do I. And so I found out later, I wrote in the book, this is the actual book, I wrote in it in Dutch. Now I finally know who I am, and it is January 1997. This is the actual book. And so I imagine this. I left school at 12 and a half years old, was looked at as somebody that's not very smart and maybe should needs mental help and will never amount to anything and blah, blah, blah. I didn't believe that. Neither did my parents and my brother and sister, but that was the thought of it. And I kind of in a way, punish myself. Say, go to Canada, the land of my dreams. I will build a sawmill. I will start with nothing. Couldn't speak the language, didn't know soul, didn't have a job. And so, but still then even already I had businesses and all the other, but I didn't feel good about myself until I saw this book and read this book, and then looked back in 1997, you know, although more is known about it now, but even then still, it was not globally recognized as a major benefit, I would call it, not a disorder, globally likely. And so until then. And so, so there from the time I was 12 and a half till the time I was 67, 50 years, I was wondering, who am I? And why am I different? And so, and this explained a lot of that, because I am ADHD. Dr. Hollowell wrote his book in 1993. I bought it in 1997, January 1997. Now, podcasting, you are my podcast where I'm the host, 372. Podcast number 203, On the Brink podcast, is with Dr. Hollowell.
That's so awesome.
Can you believe it? And so as we had our discussion, he's the expert, but I suggested to him that initially when I first read the book, I had the impression maybe 8% of the population, ADHD. I found then between Google, reading books, and finding out about research that it probably was 20%. He said, no, John, it's more than 25%. I agree with them. The other point that I found very, very interesting is that obviously I've been very active in businesses, on boards of directors, and on and on. And I know a lot of people that are very, very important. I believe that among successful, and the operative is successful, entrepreneurs and business people, I suggested to Dr. Halliwell that I believe 50% of them are ADHD. He said, no, John, probably 75%. I agree with him. So concluding that still then, and I felt that over the years, when I became aware of this from 2000 forward, is that I would meet a lot of people that knew about it, but the stigma attached to it was not very helpful and created a lot of issues and problems. So in presentations that I do, I always include a little piece, maybe about entrepreneurship or whatever I speak about. But I always include a little piece about ADHD. And as I then give a presentation in a room of people, a couple hundred of them or whatever they may be, is that I always ask, how many of the room here have or think they have ADHD? And different fingers go up all over the place. And by the time I'm done with my presentation, including that section, and people, after I give a presentation, they will never forget me. I know that. But a lot of people in the room say, damn, I wish I had it too. I felt I had to write a book about that, and I did. ADHD Unlocked, and very popular. And so it is what I call a superpower. And a lot of people say to me, how do you do all the stuff that you're doing? You're writing all these books, you have 10 different companies, you do a lot of podcasting, you give a lot of presentations, a lot of meetings, all this activity. How do you do it? I say ADHD, that's how I do it.
No, I
So,
agree.
and so coming back to mindset as it applies to me, it took for me a long time. It was not until 1997, January 1997, when I was already, the 67 years old, that I realized ADHD had a major impact on my life, and it changed my life. Knowing, knowing this, and it started really from that point forward that I started to write books. My companies became more successful, started expanding the things that I was doing, and then obviously the other part became podcasting and public speaking and all of those kind of things. But mindset, critically important. But up to that point, Devin, I asked myself a lot of times the question, who am I? And why am I different than a lot of people? And then obviously that became a critical part, because that as you go forward and pursuing success, whatever that may be, to be reconciled with who you are is critically important. And then also recognizing that there is only one of you on this earth, and you are special, not better than, but special, and accept who you are.
Hmm. No, I agree. I mean, everything you said. I mean, it's funny because I actually have ADD or ADHD as well, and diagnosed with it and everything like that. And so everything you've said, it definitely aligns. And you know, I learned I learned that I had it in college. That's when I was like diagnosed and so forth. So it wasn't something I knew always growing up. But I think that it is a superpower in terms of if you know how to harness it and learn to use it for what it's able to give you, right? But if you look at it as something that's wrong with you, then that's the wrong mindset you need to have.
But even now, still, Devin, that I find that virtually on a daily basis,
Hmm.
that people have not been, have young children, for instance, and wonder about it. It's so important to recognize it, and then to make sure it's not a liability. It could well be an asset if you understand it, you make it work for you. Like in my case, I was always very good at numbers, even when I failed grade 3. I was not good at reading for obvious reasons, but I was very good at writing. And then the other part with me is that I didn't understand it because I'd never even heard until 1997 of ADHD. Is that it was in 1990. Up to that point, I was not very good in communicating, and I had these different companies, 10 of them all over, and I could communicate with a number of people inside the company, but outside of that, not good. I did not
Hmm.
have the self-confidence. And then I had a sister-in-law that said to me in 1990, "Say, John, I want you to go with me to an organization called Toastmasters." I said, "Toastmasters? What's that all about?" She said, "It's about communications, and you will find it interesting." And I said, "Are you going to ask me questions?" She said, "No, you just sit there and watch it." I said, "Okay." And so halfway through the meeting, I thought it was interesting, and somebody said, "Hey, John, tell us all about you." I said, "Okay, I'll never go back here." And so, but I did. I stayed there for 10 years, became a distinguished Toastmaster, which is the highest level in Toastmasters, and it changed my life. In addition to driven to distraction. So if I look back to me growing up under challenging circumstances, seeing far too much PTSD in a child, as a kid, and then failing, if you wish, in the traditional learning cycle, failing grade 3, failing grade 7, and then knowing that I can do it, is saying, I'm going to start with nothing, go to Canada, the land of my dreams, I'm going to build a sawmill, and I'm going to either be successful or go back in a box to Holland. A little bit radical, I know that. So, but in any event, so all of that happened, but it took a long time to get to the point that saying, I know now who I am, and I have confidence that I'm as good as anybody else, not necessarily better than. But ADHD has helped me, because what it has done for me is that I've become a very good presenter, amazingly, and I do a lot of it, and I love it. And then at the same time, I'm very good at numbers, and then I'm a very good strategic thinker looking forward. 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Where do I go? And in terms of business and all the things that I do. So definitely for me, it has become a superpower and a major advantage.
Definitely, that's so awesome.
So that being said, and I just want to come back to you now, and now we know a bit more about you. And so your entrepreneurial side, you again are a strategic thinker, obviously, building your company, starting out your gym franchising business, and taking a different approach to it, which is usually done. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, so I mean, the gym is one aspect of one of the businesses that I have, and that was created off of my personal training, and realizing that my clients going in between our sessions would go to these boot camps and stuff, and because they didn't want to follow homework and workouts that I gave them, so they would come back and they would tell me their complaints. The class times didn't line up with their schedule, or they didn't have an hour to work out. So I started creating a program, which is now what Strive 11 is, which it's a boot camp style model. So it's like a group fitness class, but we don't have class time. So you can come in whenever it works around your schedule. Once you come in the door, then you can hop into the workout. You get the same energy as you would in a group setting, but you're not confined to a traditional schedule. And then, launching the franchise aspect of it as well was really to aid in one of my biggest core values, which is to have a positive impact on as many lives as I can while I can. And I could do that faster and at bigger scale with franchising versus just keeping it corporate stores and growing it, slowly, because I want to transform members' lives, but also franchisees' lives and the trainers that work for us lives and so forth. But the other businesses, so the gym, the franchise, the two businesses, I have a CRM company that we use for the franchise, the
What is the
podcast, and all these other things.
CRM?
Client relationship management software.
Okay.
So like that one, is something that I built for the gym initially, and then that has now taken off, and it is a separate entity for the franchise and as well as some other individuals as well.
Mainly virtual.
It's all off of like, so when a lead comes in, it's a lead nurturing process. So a lead comes in, the automated text, the automated emails, booking appointments, and so forth.
So, so you have franchises now in different locations,
Mhm.
LA, Vancouver, Washington. So what is the name of those gyms?
So all of those gyms are Strive 11.
Strive 11?
Mhm.
What does that mean? Why?
So strive, because you're, strive for greatness, strive for
Right,
progress, right? The
right.
11, everyone wonders what's the analogy or what's the metaphor for the 11. And I let our trainers, come up with different stuff, but really it's because there's 11 stations in the workout. And the stations change every single day depending on the muscle groups that we're working for the day. Like today is upper body push, tomorrow's upper body pull, yesterday was glutes. But the stations always change, but there's 11 stations. So that's where the 11 comes from. But the trainers can have fun with it and make up different quotes and different metaphors and stuff with it.
So how many franchises do you have so far, Devin?
So far we have one opening up in Tampa, Florida, and then we have four more that are in the process of opening as well.
So how do they work? Just out of looking at the entrepreneurial aspect of it, do you own them or do you provide another owner with a package of strategies that they must follow?
So there's the corporate ones, like the one in Los Angeles I own, and then the one in Tampa, I have a franchisee. He owns that one, and essentially I basically help him not only, my team helps him open that location, but it also gives continued support, continuing education. And it's essentially creating a network, not just like, here's a blueprint, good luck. It's like, we're with you hand in hand and really helping you, get condense your timeline to success, right? So everyone that comes on, they get the blueprint, but they also get that continued support to make sure that they're, on the best path to success as possible.
So a couple of things that I want to get from you. I need to get a website. How do people contact you? And then for Strive 11, for those people that are entrepreneurial that would like to find out more about it and opportunities and Strive 11, as well give us information on that part.
Yeah, so if anyone wants to connect with me, I created like a landing hub, which is just, all my social medias, the book and everything. It's just devangonzalez.com, DEVANGONZALEZ.com. And then for the gym, you can go to Strive 11, so Strive and then 11 fitness.com/franchise.
Okay, so did you imagine this, that this would all happen to you once you finished college and started looking at, obviously you were entrepreneurial thinking,
Mhm.
that starting with going to the gym and making that part and mindset in particular being something so critically important. Why was mindset so important as it is in my life, in your life?
I mean, my goal of launching a franchise didn't come till later. My original plan was, building a personal training company and, making six figures and making that a job, and, didn't know where that was going to take me, whether it was working with pro athletes or, whatever the case may be. And I did work with some pro athletes, but that led me to helping launch a national prep school. And then, then that led me to wanting to open my own gym with my own, unique niched concept. And so mindset for that whole thing for me was, I was a W-2 employee, and that first step was, taking the bet on myself and launching my own personal training company, right? And knowing that every time I transitioned from a corporate gym to the private gym, I had started over from, basically zero clients, built it all the way back up, was the busiest trainer. And then, did it again once I went to do my own personal training company. Again, was the busiest trainer in the area. And then I was like, you know what? I've already had proof that I may not know everything right now, but there's nothing that will stop me from learning and acquiring the skills and knowledge that I need to be successful.
So, what are the, and looking at one of the questions that I have, what are some of the common mental barriers you see in people pursuing fitness and business goals? And how can they break through these barriers?
A lot of people compare where they're at currently to a previous version of themselves. And just because it didn't work one time for you doesn't mean it won't work the next time for you, right? Sometimes that moment wasn't right, or that opportunity wasn't right, right? Or sometimes you need to analyze, why didn't it work, right? Were you letting outside influences affect you, right? If that was the case, now you can know moving forward, you can re-strategize, you can readjust your game plan so that you can attack it from a different angle. Because just because it didn't work the first time doesn't mean it won't work the next time.
And failing is not a liability. In fact, I wrote this book where I learned is times that I hit the bottom, came back up again, go down again, and go back up again. And that's is the whole foundation of I always stayed the same in saying that critical to me is attitude. I avoid negative, and so passion, Whatever I do, I give it 125%. And work ethic, whatever I do, I work harder than anybody else, but will follow is success. But you have to believe in you. And you have to
Yep.
believe in can do, not can't, can do. And that's the success. Can you show us once more your book before we
Definitely.
go? And so the book is Money Muscle Mindset, available online, Amazon in particular. And then when are you going to do the Audible?
That is a work in progress, but with ADHD, it is. I can't give you a deadline on that.
Yeah. So I find that I did another one on communications actually that is coming out in the next 3 months. I'm still working on the title, but the book is pretty much done. And but I will do the Audible on that as well. It takes me longer than anybody else for all the reasons that we both know.
Yep.
Devan, and for all the people watching us from around the world, on this amazing podcast with Devan, is that it is grit, strategy, inspiration. Look at his podcast. What is the title of your podcast again?
The Mindset Cafe.
The Mindset Cafe. And then for those people watching us and wanting to see more of these podcasts on my podcast or Devan's, then endorse them, share them with others, comment on it. And Devan, it was an amazing podcast. Let's stay in touch. And
Definitely.
thank you again for being on my podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It was an honor.